We're a little under 2 weeks away from the start of an Eagles training camp that promises to be very different to the one we've come to know and love. However, that doesn't mean there aren't things to watch, and in this series over the next couple of weeks we're going to be breaking down every single position, every single player to bring you the most in-depth look into the Eagles roster that you could find anywhere. And it's only fitting that we start off with the quarterback position, where there has obviously been a lot of noise this offseason, from the face of the franchise to a second round pick to an underdog you may not know, but I'm sure you soon will. My name is Liam Jenkins. Let's dive into it. Before we get started though, guys, a massive thank you to anyone who's watched our content over the last few months and continue to support what we do. We love you so damn much. If you're not already subscribed, it would be great if you could take the time out to hit that red button, leave a like if you do enjoy the video. It's the best way to support the channel, and as always you can get your daily dose of Philadelphia sports coverage from myself and all of our writers at phillysportsnetwork.com. We want to be your new home for reliable, consistent and unique insights into your favourite team, so just give us a shot, you might find something you like. Let's start off with the face of the franchise then, Carson Wentz, and for the king of the castle, the motive this training camp is a simple one: get familiar with your new weapons. Now, Wentz has already taken some measures to do this by working out with several of the team's young receivers back in June, including prized rookie Jalen Hurts. But with no OTAs and a camp that is going to be a total wildcard in how it's run, every single rep is even more valuable than it already was. There are a lot of new toys for Carson Wentz to play with, and even though Wentz is clearly the face of the franchise and there's no pressure on that front, this summer has to be one where he's flying out of the gate and elevating every teammate. It's tough to quantify leadership, and that's what we want to see from Wentz, but if there is a safe way for him and his new receivers to get reps in after a practice finishes, for instance, that would be a really positive sign. I want to see the growth of Wentz. We saw him take over the team, put it on his back in the final 4 games of last season. We saw in the weeks preceding that exceptional run Wentz start to work after practice with his wide receivers. I want to see more of that proactivity, more behind the scenes, those sneaky little shots of Carson Wentz putting in the extra work with his wideouts, just as we saw back in mid-June. But outside of that, it's also important that he shakes off as much rust as possible, knowing that there are only 2 preseason games and Peterson will not want to risk him for many snaps at all. So Wentz is bound to only see like maybe a quarter of action in the second preseason game, maybe a drive in the first one, and then whatever training camp snaps come with that. It's going to be tough by the time the regular season rolls around, so getting Wentz up to speed, making sure he's ready and rolling as soon as the offense take the field against the Redskins has to be an absolute priority. We know he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. To Eagles fans, he's at least gone out and proven it. This has to be the year he goes and does so to the rest of America and of course the rest of the world. But to do that, it all starts with a good camp and getting acclimatized with his new teammates. What about the new kid on the block? This is where the fun begins. There is so much speculation around how the Eagles will use Jalen Hurts, and when examining the new coaching staff, it's not hard to see why, and I've touched on that many times here on the channel and of course on articles at phillysportsnetwork.com. But unfortunately, I feel it's unlikely as though the Eagles are going to work on some of those funky 2 quarterback sets and using him as a receiver and all the rest of it in training camp for all to see, because there's just not enough time to get creative and to show off for those in attendance. Hurts has one job and one job only in an off-season where again there are no OTAs, and Nate Sudfeld does have a significant advantage when it comes to knowing the playbook. He's got to get in and perform as a quarterback first. We have to judge him as a quarterback. That's what he was drafted as, not a gadget player. Hurts should be judged in that way, nothing more, nothing less in my opinion. And despite the offseason being virtual up to this point, Doug Peterson was quick to sing the praises of his second round pick in anticipation for what he can do on the practice field, saying that he can now recite plays as if he was in the huddle, and Press Taylor's been working with him to put him in that situation, allowing Hurts to almost rap that information back to him, and that's working. There's a lot of intrigue around the former Sooners quarterback, who, as we know, almost won the Heisman, had 1,295 rushing yards to his name last year, and considering he's already gotten to know Kes Watkins before the draft process and beyond that, it's fun to imagine the growing chemistry if they're grouped together with the threes over the next few weeks. I could see that being very likely. So the one thing I'll say to watch out for is that Kez and Jalen Hurts connection. That's going to be your deep threat, the things people are live tweeting. That for me will be a real red circle partnership. If I could put DraftKings lineups on training camp, those two would be my guys. This will be a good grading scale for Hurts though, because Sudfeld may not be the most electric quarterback of all time, but he's been in the system since the beginning of 2017 and should know the playbook like the back of his hand now, giving him a clear mental advantage over the technically gifted talent that is Jalen Hurts. The question is, just how quickly can Hurts catch up? And will he surpass Sudfeld for that QB2 spot? That's the battle. This isn't QB3 and beyond. This is a backup QB spot. Sudfeld clinging on for dear life. Talking of Nate the Great, it's more Nate, is it too late at this point? Because he's on a very short leash, I imagine. I was stunned to see him brought back for another year, if I'm totally honest. Because whenever he's seen live action, he's just handed the ball off or taken a check down, and obviously that's how he scored his first touchdown courtesy of Nelson Aguilar. They've been very simple plays, and then he's been pulled as soon as the starter can go back in. If you compare that to Josh McCown, who somehow snatched the QB2 job at very, very late notice with a one-game sample size, which should show you enough already how far behind Sudfeld really is contextually, McCown was running around like Carson Wentz against the Seahawks, and although the performance wasn't fantastic statistically and didn't push the Eagles to a win, it was inspiring, it was full of drive and effort, and you could see McCown being given the freedom to run the offense as normal. And with Nick Foles, as we all know, he was given total freedom in a condensed version of the offense, which obviously went on to win the Eagles a Super Bowl. Sudfeld just looked sloppy last offseason before the injury, and after he recovered, the role of backup QB was no longer his. Then the Eagles draft Jalen Hurts in the second round, and suddenly a lot of pressure is on those shoulders of Sudfeld to actually step up and turn heads, to use that addition as fuel, become a vocal leader on the practice field, and impress with consistency and aggression. We've seen the deep ball improve, we've seen his mechanics improve. They were very, very loose when he first arrived on the scene in Philadelphia. And you can trace that back to his days at Indiana, as we have on this channel, where he almost overexerts a football, which caused it to be wildly inaccurate. That's a lot more tame now, but you can't help but feel that Sudfeld might have hit his ceiling here. And do you know what? That's absolutely fine, but the quarterback factory waits for no man. Sudfeld was brought in around week 1 of 2017. This will be his 4th year in the system, and if he is still not ready to be QB2, then it is time to move on, and it is time to let new talent flourish and to restart that cycle, keeping the conveyor belt moving. And that's where we get to our 4th and final quarterback, the man who will be breathing down Sudfeld's neck, who many forget is even on the roster. That QB is Lauletta, 25-year-old former 4th round pick of the New York Giants, and a former Richmond Spider who signed with the Eagles just days after he was shockingly cut by the team that drafted him. He was handed the second highest deal of any undrafted free agent, showing a real sign of investment from the Eagles, and that shouldn't be overlooked. It's easy to see why the Eagles liked him too. He's 6'3", 217 pounds, has the size and smarts needed to thrive in this scheme. Now, he doesn't have a cannon for an arm, but he does have an ability to read defenses quickly and deliver precise passes in shorter areas of the field, which realistically is what you want from a game manager should your starter go down. After some off-field distractions, which were detailed in another video, the drafting of Daniel Jones, and a heroic comeback in week 4 of preseason 1 year later, Lauletta somehow ended up being dismissed by the Giants and was found on the Eagles less than a week later. It's clear that he has the talent, and he should be able to give Sudfeld a real run for his money this offseason, and it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest to see him actually displace Sudfeld as a QB3 if he can build a rapport with his receivers and outshine his teammate. Honestly, if you want something to do, go and watch the Giants week 4 preseason matchup and watch Lauletta rally his team back from the dead to a win, and the absolute jubilation of his teammates when they won that game. It meant everything to them, and I want to see that meaning in a preseason game where not a lot of people can find it. I love that hustle, I love that heart. I really think there is an upside here, and he should at least be able to surpass Sudfeld. That would be my bold prediction for camp. But what do you think, guys? Who are you most looking forward to seeing? Are you just excited to see Carson Wentz in that red jersey, or maybe it is his 2nd round rookie Jalen Hurts that is making you salivate at the idea of some summer football, let us know down below. And as always, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this content. It really does mean a lot to us. We've got film rooms, we've got every single position being broken down here. Stick around the channel, there's plenty more on the horizon, but for now, we'll see you next time.